Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be doing a video on my predictions for the 2024 F1 season. It is a video I'm taking very seriously, so I think I'm going to get a bit more fancy. Hold on. Yeah, that's more like it. So, I'm going to start off with the team's standings, starting with last place. I think that will be Haas. Kind of self-explanatory, I think. I don't think that getting rid of Günther Steiner is going to bring any sudden miracles. I don't think they are going to have a very clear direction, and I think that they are going to become. They're going to be plumb lost. I don't think their drivers will be necessarily plumb lost because Logan Sargent exists, but I think Haas as a whole will be plumb lost because Alex Albon exists for Williams. Ninth, Stake or Kick or Sauber or whatever they are. Again, they have been looking just a little bit during testing. Um, Obviously, they have got some pretty good drivers, but the rest of the grid, throughout testing at least, have looked so promising. There have been a couple of teams that look like, hey, they might be able to challenge. Of course, at the later stages, it looked a lot more like it will be perhaps a fight between two teams, which I will talk about later. But I think they will come ninth. Williams coming eighth. It pains me to put them down here, especially since last season they were quite promising, but I don't know. During testing, they did not seem super promising. The car seemed a bit iffy. Obviously, it took them a while to get the car actually built, and there just have been issues with it. Obviously, first spin of the season was in the Williams and whatnot, and obviously, testing doesn't tell you the full picture, but it might be a bit worrying. Then I think Alpine, seventh. They are possibly the most midfield team. They have been kind of sliding backwards throughout the last few years. In early, in 2020, they were pretty good with Ricardo getting some wins, podiums. 2021 also the occasional podium, even a win for Ocon at Hungary. But Alpine, I don't think are looking particularly promising this year, and I think Alpine are just kind of. It's hard to get excited about them, especially when you've got other teams that have shown such epic things. Speaking of which, not really. Visa, Cash App Racing Bulls, the best name. That's my thoughts on them. I think they've got some good drivers, and because they, are copying one of the most dominant cars of all time, I think that will be something very good for them. So because of that, I think they will find occasionally some really good positions and good points. But I think it will be quite a big gap between Visa and the cars I'm going to be talking about next. Aston Martin, I think, will come fifth in the championship. I think Alonso will be stunning as usual, and I think Lance Stroll will not. Not that I could do any better, although no one's given me the chance. But I think Aston Martin look like they might have a really fast car, but so do a lot of other people. Number four, Mercedes. That car just looks so good, and it's interesting. I'm excited to see how their front wing is going to affect what changes are most important. Obviously, Ferrari hasn't changed their rear suspension, which is interesting. They haven't thought it was very important. Red Bull changed their side pods drastically, and Mercedes changed their front wing, and it's just going to be cool to see what is the what wins out, which innovation is the most kind of fetching. But I think Mercedes will do a fine job. I think they will be very top of the midfield, peeking into the top guys on occasion. But I think they will be very consistent. However, not stellar. McLaren, I think, will come third in the championship. This one is just, they have made in the past, Norris and Piastri have made mistakes, I don't think they will be as consistent as, say, Mercedes, but I think they will get those amazing, cool races and positions like last year, where Piastri won a sprint race and Norris and Piastri ended up getting together a decent helping of podiums. So I think they will have a very, very good season. However, in second place, Red Bull Racing. I know it is unpopular to think that they will not dominate the entire season, but Ferrari have been looking so strong. I mean, Sainz put a lap in testing that was very nearly as quick as Max Verstappen's pole lap last year. I'm very excited by them, and Red Bull I think have will probably have the possibly the better car over the year. But I think while they have one driver who is very likely to win, Max Verstappen, Ferrari have a really, really good lineup. Seriously amazing. So I think they will win the 2024 Constructors' Championship. I think it will be a bit of a 2008 situation, if you get what I mean. But yeah, I know. As long as Ferrari can kind of keep things together, keep their car together, the drivers kind of, then I think it'll be a very good season. So, on to the drivers. In last place, I think it will be Logan Sargent. In 19th place, I think it will be Kevin Magnussen. I do think that Nico Hulkenberg will beat him out. Nico Hulkenberg, I think, will come 18th. In 17th and 16th, I think Zhou 17th and Bottas 16th. I think Stake will be, pretty far back. And while I think they will do better than Logan Sargent in the Williams, I think that Albon will work some magic, and so he will be a bit further up the standings. In 14th, I think Yuki Tsunoda. I think I think he will do a totally decent job and beat out a lot of much more experienced drivers. In 13th and 12th, respectively, Ocon 13th and Gasly 12th. I don't think Alpine will be blowing anyone away, but I think that it will be very close between them. I thought that last year I predicted that Gasly would beat out Ocon. Obviously, there were a lot of people who thought Ocon would beat out Gasly because, I mean, Ocon's definitely should not be so underrated as he is. He was very, very good against Perez and against Alonso, and those are good drivers. But I believe in Gasly. He's my boy. So, moving on to number 11, Daniel Ricciardo. Yeah, I believe that Ricciardo will beat Tsunoda and actually beat him by quite a bit. I think that he will somehow find his mojo. I'm hoping at least. I mean, everyone wants to see him find his mojo, and I think he will be just outside the top 10 in the standings. 10th place, Stroll. I think for how good the car is, it will be maybe a little bit underwhelming, but I think that the Aston Martin will be so much better than, the bottom five cars of the grid that, Stroll can't get lower than top 10 in the standings. Unless maybe it turns out that Aston Martin's a tractor. It's always possible, although I don't think they're sponsored by JCB anymore. Moving on. Ninth place, Russell. This pains me a bit, as I'm a bit of a Russell well, I would say fanboy, more, let's say passionate man. Um, However, I just think that the two guys ahead of him will be in roughly similarly paced cars, and will just be a bit more consistent. So Alonso, I think, will come eighth, beating out Russell, and I think Hamilton will come seventh, beating out both his teammate and Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. The top six that are the three cars I think are going to be kind of up there. Lando Norris, I predict, will come sixth, beaten by Oscar Piastri in fifth. Yeah, I know that's a bold prediction, but Oscar Piastri has been really, really impressive. To think that his first ever race, was a complete disaster in Bahrain. He pit so many times. It was absolutely terrible, and it was quite unpromising. To think that he would go on to get podiums and even win a sprint race, I mean, he improved a lot. Yeah, his tire management hasn't been fab, yet. But that comes with experience, and I think that he is as fast, if not sometimes faster than Norris, and I think Norris, you know, they will each have their days where they excel and each have their days where they make mistakes. I think McLaren have got a very um, strong lineup, but both their drivers, I feel, even though Norris has been in the car for a long time, still is looking for some maturity, maybe in the car. So, P4, Perez. Yeah, I think that he will not be beaten by the McLarens, but he will be beaten by both Ferraris. So, third place, Leclerc. That's right, I said it. I think Sainz will beat Leclerc. Sainz, I believe, will come second. My hair is giving me trouble. Why do I think that? Well, a lot of my things are also partially based on driver errors. Sainz is a very consistent driver. He's also a very quick, driver. He won the only race last year that wasn't won by a Red Bull. He was beaten by Leclerc in the standings in the end by like 6 points. They're very close together. It's an absolute shame that he's out of a seat as of yet for 2025. I hope somebody picks him up. Somebody definitely should because he's an absolutely amazing driver. Obviously, if Lewis Hamilton comes knocking on your door, you let him in. But I think Science is not obviously worse than Leclerc. I wouldn't say that. But number one, unfortunately, boringly, will be Max Verstappen. However, my one sliver of hope, I don't believe it will be a super duper dominant season. Unfortunately, since we're talking Max Verstappen Red Bull domination terms, what I mean by that is that I don't think he will win half the races. I think he'll win fewer. Um, Now, obviously, so that's my predictions. Now, in my predictions, there are kind of three groupings of them. I predicted the standings for drivers and constructors, and the third prediction is also who will beat out, who in the teammate battle, who will win. Um, so for Red Bull, I think Max Verstappen. For Ferrari, I think Sainz. For McLaren, I think Piastri. For Mercedes, I think Hamilton. For um, Aston Martin, I think Alonso. For Visa, I think Ricardo. For Williams, I think Albon. For Stake, I think Bottas. And for Haas, I think Hulkenberg. I didn't mention Alpine. I think Gasly. Any other big predictions for the year? I think Oscar Piastri will get his first win before Norris. I think they will both get their first win though this season. I think Max Verstappen will win fewer than half the races of the season. Yeah, yeah, really, really. I'm really hopeful, really ambitious goal that is. What else? I think Lewis Hamilton will get a win with Mercedes. I think that Albon in Williams will get a podium. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I believe in the dude. I do, I really do. And I believe that Logan Sargent will get more than 1 point. Thank you very much for watching. At the end of the season, we'll kind of see how my predictions are doing. Also, at the end of every race weekend, I'm going to be looking at kind of how the season's going, giving a small review of the race, and seeing how my predictions are holding up. So let's see. See you then.